because I want to get these materials into your hands. Okay, so first of all, we talked a little bit about potencies. So an X equals 10 in Roman numeral, C equals 100, M equals 1,000, and we also have a potency called LM. So when something is, we talked about how diluted it is, this is going to tell you how diluted it is. So one of the hardest parts about homeopathy is that if it is less diluted, it's actually a lower potency. So for example, a lot of our cell salts, we're going to have a whole section on cell salts because I love them, are in X. So that means that there's still some of the source material of that potency or of that homeopathic remedy in there. So for example, if we were doing calcarea phosphoricum, calc phos, that would be made from calcium and phosphorus, which is naturally occurring in our bodies. So usually, like I said, those are used in a 3x or 6x. You can use them in higher. But it's going to be easy for your body to absorb, and it's going to recognize it, unlike a calcium pill that you might take that your body may not absorb and understand as well. So the LM potencies, I don't do as much with them. They are actually extremely diluted. They're usually more for very sensitive types of people. And so I'm not going to talk much about LMs at all, but just so you know, you can order them and you might see them, especially if you go to a homeopath, that they might help you with that. Okay, so our 1Ms we don't use as often, but once in a while that's going to be considered a higher potency. So that's something that you could use in more of an extreme acute case. For example, I do keep arnica 1M just in case somebody is injured and they absolutely need that higher potency. But normally what I'm going to do is I'm going to start around a 6C or a 30C. So again, we talked about C's equal 100. So with our, especially if we're dealing with a child or an animal, a lot of times I'm going to start with like a lower potency of a 6C or a 30C. A lot of times also with acutes, those tend to work really well or respond really well with 30s. With a 200, a lot of times we do that more for if there's a mental component to the problem, like if there's anxiety, or if it's something that's more chronic. So we will talk later about protocols, but there are some protocols that might use a 200 and a 6 because they work well together. Okay, so I hope that helps you with that. So again, like I said, the hardest part is understanding if you have a 6X, that's going to be a lower potency. A 6C is going to be higher because that's going to be 100, right? And typically we're going to see 30s, 200s, and 1Ms. Those are typically what you're going to see from a pharmacy, but you can actually go to the pharmacies and order what you want in various levels and potencies and sizes. So we'll talk about that later too. Okay, so how do we properly store our remedies? So storing our remedies, you're going to want to keep them out from direct sunlight, and they recommend not having it in too high of a heat or too cold. So it'd be something like putting it in your linen closet. It's also recommended not to keep next to any strong smelling chemicals like bleach or, for example, essential oils. Like I said, I love essential oils, but I have a whole area of essential oils. I actually put mine, I get nail polish holders and I put all my essential oils in alphabetical order, and I keep that away from my homeopathy. My homeopathy, I also put it in alphabetical order, but I have a lot more. And I keep those in a separate location. So especially remedies such as that are from the menthol family, like peppermint or camphor, something like that, you don't want to have it right next to your homeopathy because it could affect it. And just like you would with any medication, you probably wouldn't want to put your let's say you're taking a vitamin, you wouldn't want to put that right next to an essential oil because it might start picking up that smell or that flavor, and you definitely don't want to have it around chemicals. I personally do carry some with me in my purse all the time. Some people are more concerned about keeping it protected, but for me, I want to have it on hand if I need it. So I'm going to show you just a couple different kits and options. So I think I told you that I started with the most basic, one of the cheapest kits that you can get from Helios, and I think it's about $70. And this comes with a nice little Materia Medica book, which goes through, and I'll link these as an option. But it goes through in the beginning of the book all the complaints. For example, if you have an accident, what options there are to use. Anxiety, so it lists the different remedies. For example, Gelsenium 30 is great if you have anticipatory anxiety. If you have anxiety with trembling, Gelsemium might be a good option. Or aconite if there's a sudden shock that comes on quickly. So this goes by complaints at first, and then in the back they have what we call Materia Medica, and I'm working on developing my own, so hopefully that will be available for you. And so this will go through each remedy and what it covers. So let's go to Gelsemium, which we were just talking about, and it talks about this is a great remedy for flu, especially when they're shivering up and down the spine, characterized by paralysis, or remedy known as the glass coffin because there is complete physical prostration and coupled with mental alertness. Patient trembles. So this is going to explain a little bit more about Gelsemium. And not that you have to have all of these issues, but this helps give you an idea of where to start. Okay? So like I said, this is from Helios, which they're out of England. They're a pharmacy out of England, and I do love to order from them. This is going to have, each little bottle is going to have about, I think it's about 25 pellets. One pellet is a dose in this situation per bottle. There's also lots of other kits that you can order. If you can, it might be a good idea to get a combination of a 200 and a 30 kit. Because sometimes you're going to want to use 30s, and then sometimes you're going to want to move up and use a 200 if needed. So this is a great one that I was able to get. There's lots of pharmacies that carry the kits. I know some of them have a hard time keeping them in stock. So sometimes you need to follow some of the pharmacies and just purchase when it's available. And this one, they come in tiny little pellets. I mean, these are poppy seed, which is challenging. As you see, some of them fell out. They're absolutely tiny. I don't prefer this size, but some people do because it dissipates so quickly. Another option is what I like to do personally is I like to make my own. So these are essential oil holders. And what I do is you can order, or as you're going to the store, and instead of buying, chips, a couple bags of chips, you can go buy, at least at our grocery store, you can buy a homeopathic remedy. And then what I like to do is I put them in these little essential oil bottles. And again, make sure that these are clean bottles, that they haven't had essential oils in them. And I use a funnel, and then I fill it, and then I actually put my own label on it. So that's an Aconite 200, which we'll talk about later. And I have my own little set of homeopathy, and I put these in alphabetically, and I carry 4 at a time. And that way, if we're driving down the road and my child says, I have a headache, I can hand them these, and they can determine which one they want to take for headaches, because there's lots of options for headaches. Or if I've got a child that's feeling car sick, or somebody that just hurt themselves, I can just hand this over and I teach my kids to help themselves and to learn these skills themselves. This is so, so important. I can't stress that enough, that we need to pass this on to the next generation so that they know that they don't just have to use regular pharmaceuticals. So I will link these for you so that you can make your own if you want, and with whatever budget you have. I mean, like I said, these are usually under $10 to start with. So if you can buy 2 at a time and then keep it with you, because it doesn't do any good if you're at the park and your child falls down and injures themselves and has a sprained ankle if your remedies are at home, right? So I'm really big on carrying these. We're a very active family. We travel a lot. When I travel, I actually have a whole bag. I take my books, and I have a perfect little bag that it's my little medical bag, where I put in my homeopathy, my kits, my like I said, books, and then other things like band-aids and anything else I'm going to need, activated charcoal, um, like calendula in a balm, you know, way to put on, or arnica that you can put as far as like a cream on the outer part of your body. So I have everything in there. So if something happens, we're prepared. We go boating, skiing. I can just throw this into a backpack. Hiking, we do a lot of hiking. And so I just can keep this easily in my purse or my bag. The other thing is I like to make one of these for each one for my family member. So when they are for my husband, I send a kit with him to work. And then he can call me, say, sweetie, I'm having, I'm starting to feel a sore throat. What should I take? And he can go grab his kit. And I do this for my kids too. I give them at least a 10 pack if they're going to be going to stay the night at a friend or a camp or whatever it might be. So I always believe in don't be scared, be prepared and have it on hand, because knowing, oh my goodness, this would be the perfect remedy. And this does happen to me because I only carry about 45 at a time. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is what I need and I can't get to it. Be as prepared as possible. Go through, and what I'd like you to do as far as your homework for after this module is to go through and write down common issues that your family may have. For example, my kids tend to get nosebleeds. And we're going to talk about, but go ahead and just write down what are some things that you would like to have on hand. Do your kids get car sick? Do you have issues with high altitude sickness? We're in the mountains, so I have to carry something, or I do carry something for high altitude sickness, and there's always people having high altitude sickness up here. Do you have somebody that tends to fall and injure themselves a lot? Do you have kids that have allergies? Let's carry some allergy remedies with us. Do you have those that get colds easily? Because you want to nip something in the bud right away, because what happens is if you let it go on, it starts to take a little bit more hold in your body, and it's harder for the homeopathy to be as effective. It still can be effective, but if you can get it in right away, I will tell you, it makes a world of difference. And I tell my kids, sometimes they've hidden that they were going to get sick or that they had colds, and when they hide it from me, what happens is we cannot, it's harder to uproot it, right? To take it out. But if they can tell me right away, as soon as they feel something coming on, you've got to take some homeopathy. And now I just teach them, just go grab it if you don't want to tell me right away. Right? Okay, so we talked about storing remedies. So how often do you take homeopathy? What's wonderful about it is you can't overdose on it. So if you call poison control in your infant, and I have people contact me all the time, oh my gosh, I just had somebody, their dog, they were babysitting a dog and their dog got into one of the remedies and chewed up or ate most of it. It's not going to harm them. They're not going to have any side effects. It's wonderful. So if your child gets into one of these and swallows the whole bottle, they're not going to need any issues. You can call poison control, and there's no issue with it at all. But at the same time, how do you dose for something that you can't overdose on, right? So we're so used to conventional medication where you can only take it every 6 hours. I remember when I had my accident and I was in so much pain, and I would be waiting, oh my gosh, I can't wait for it to be 8 hours later for me to take that medication. So homeopathy is different. You can dose it based on what's happening. You can listen to your body, listen to your child or your family member, your pet, and see if they need it. So one of the things we're going to talk about is taking copious, careful notes and following what's going on. So if they're having a cold or they're, let's say, vomiting, and you give them a dose and they're still vomiting about at the same rate, you probably need to give them another dose. So normally we say give about 4 doses and see if their body is improving, or wait a few hours. So you could give something, let's say it's an acute issue and you were just throwing up every few minutes. You could take a remedy more often, and probably it's not even staying in there very well, right? But it's going into that mucosa, so it's at least being absorbed to a certain level. So you could give that more often. But let's say somebody just has an upset stomach, you could give it to them one dose, and then they don't complain for a few hours, then you can give them another dose. So I like to do it every 2 to 3 hours if it's an acute situation. But if it's really serious, like let's say somebody just got stung by a bee, they might need it, they're screaming, they might need a couple doses. And you can do a loading dose too, where you give more at the beginning and let it spread out a little bit more. But the great thing about it is you can use the remedies as needed. So especially with my kids, I'm like, okay, here it is. If you need to take more, go ahead and take more. This is to help you with, let's say, if they're having flu-like symptoms, and I'm giving them eupatorium because they're having achiness in their body. If you need more, take more. If they forget to take it, it's not like antibiotics from the doctor. You don't have to take it for 10 days. You can stop taking it when very much better. So if you're forgetting to take it, that's actually a good sign. That means that your body isn't needing it anymore. And that's what I love about listening to our bodies. Okay, also you can adjust based on sensitivity. I'm going to talk a little bit about, let's say, for example, you do have someone that's really sensitive to, it could be homeopathy, they could be really concerned. What you can do is you can take an empty tincture bottle. Let's see if I have any. Oh, this is probably a better example. An empty bottle, and you can put just a few pellets in there, and you can put water in there, and you can do an aqueous dose. So you could put a little bit in their water and have them sip it throughout the day. For example, Mag-Phos is wonderful for that. Magnesium phosphoricum. It's great for cramps, if it be leg cramps or menstrual or whatever it might be. So you can have that in warm water, and you can just sip it as needed. The one thing I would say is you don't want to keep just a remedy in water for very long, because it could start to develop, like, bacteria or whatever. So you want to use it up fairly quickly. Now, another way to do an aqueous dose is to take a bottle and put your remedies in the bottle. For example, I like to use this for pets, but also for other options is a good idea. So I can put some of the remedy in the bottle, and then I fill a third of it up with my alcohol. Again, we're going to use high levels of alcohol. We're not just going to use rum or something. And then you can do the 2/3 with water. And then what you would do is succuss it and shake it on your hand every time you're going to give it, and give it in dropper form. So this was a great way when I had a lab who was dealing with a lot of issues. She had arthritis. She was dealing with some stuff going on in her skin and in her body, heart issues, breathing issues. So instead of trying to put all those pellets in her mouth, which she didn't always love, she would sometimes spit them out, I could just give her a liquid dose and put it in her cheek. So that's one way to do it. You can also do, let's say you've got a liquid dose, you can also dilute it and put it in some water for somebody, because especially with kids, a lot of them don't like the taste of the alcohol. So feel free with a tincture. It works the same way, or because some of our protocols do have regular tinctures, or with a regular dose, a liquid dose of homeopathy, it's going to have the alcohol. So you can definitely dilute it for them. Okay, so try it for around 4 times for acute issues. Now, what about for chronics? For chronic issues, you're going to want to try it for around 2 months at least. And you're going to be taking careful notes, seeing if anything improves, because over a long period of time, especially with chronics, you may not be able to see as quickly, oh my goodness, am I actually sneezing less? Okay, let me think about it. Okay, in my notes, I put that I was sneezing about 10 times a day, and I was itchy, watery eyes. Okay, I'm still sneezing, but I'm not going through as many tissues. I'm feeling better. I can get outside more, and I'm not having that fear of going outside. So you want to look at that. With like an acute issue, if you take your 4 doses and it's not helping, the beautiful thing about it is we have so many other remedies, right? So go ahead and look for a different remedy. Sometimes you need to go up in potency. So let's say if you did it in a 6, you could, let's say you gave arnica in a 6, and maybe it would seem to be helping a little bit, but you're like, they could use a little bit more. You could go up to a 30. If the 30 isn't working, you could go up to a 200. So you can slowly adjust it. Um, and if it's not like, oh, arnica doesn't seem to be helping this issue, let's look at bellis. Bellis is great for injury to your, your main part of your body, your trunk. So I could try something like that. So you can always shift. And that's what I love about homeopathy. Let's say that somebody is going through a flu. Now, we all know that when you start a flu, you might start with the sore throat, the head stuffy, then you get the aches. So you can treat all those different issues separately. You can pivot quickly and follow what's needed. When I used to go to the doctor all the time, I would call to make an appointment. Of course, I couldn't get in that day, so it'd have to be the next day. And by that time, my symptoms have changed. So you can do this right away, so you don't have to wait to get in. You don't have to spend so much time in waiting rooms and in offices and on the phone with insurance companies. And for example, like with a cough, so let's say the cough is really non-productive and it's really dry. You can give a remedy for that, and then when it gets really productive, you can give a different remedy to help clear out that mucus and everything. So that's why it's so important to learn these. Okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about aggravations. So some people are really afraid of aggravation. So an aggravation is basically if you take a homeopathic remedy and you have a new symptom or an issue that comes up that wasn't there before. So let's say that, I'm trying to think of an example of one that somebody was telling me about recently. So they were taking a combination remedy and they started having, I know what it was. They started having issues with their eyelashes. And that's not what they were taking the remedy for. And they said, well, could I be having an issue? I said, yeah, you could be. And so all you need to do is to stop taking the remedy. And you can either antidote it by taking a peppermint essential oil. So you can sniff peppermint essential oil and that will antidote it, or you can take camphor 200, one dose at least, and kind of clear and reset the slate. Or you could just find a different remedy that would help that issue and try something different. This does not happen very often, and usually if you don't use the higher potencies, it's not very common. So over 200 to 1M and higher, it's more likely to happen, but it's still not as common. But I want to let you know about it so you can look for it. So when you're taking your notes and you're watching your child and they are having an additional issue that they didn't have, then you can go back and look, okay, and you can read up on that. Is that remedy belladonna? Is that I'm giving it for because their fever is really, really high? Is that something that this other issue that's coming up, is that something that could be related to this? Or could it just be a new symptom that if they're fighting sickness, it could be different symptoms of sickness. So you've got to use a little bit of your intuition. One of the things I wanted to talk about with fevers is that fevers are usually curative. I know here in our country, we're very concerned about fevers, and there's always, oh my goodness, it's this high, and I need to give Tylenol or whatever it might be, ibuprofen to get the fever down. Our bodies were designed to have fevers to help heal us. And so allowing a fever to continue and not suppressing it is going to actually help your body take care of that issue faster. There are lots of articles out there, lots of information that I can try to put on there about fevers. But I think most of us know that that's something that our body actually needs to allow to happen. Now, if it gets to a certain level, like too high, then yes, we do need to be concerned. And then there's homeopathy that can naturally bring that down. Belladonna is the example of that. Okay, let me just make sure I've covered everything. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about treating animals with homeopathy, because I know we all love our pets and animals. So you can treat almost any kind of animal with homeopathy. There's different ways to do it. A couple ways we talked about doing the liquid dose and making a dose for them and putting it in their cheek. I find that's a good way. You can also put their pellets. You can either have them lick it. Some animals will come and lick them right off your hand. Others are not as excited about that. The other option you can do is you can make a water dose and actually shake it up and put it in their water. And that can be useful, for example, if you have a concern, like I have chickens, like you have a concern that there might be some communicable disease that's going around. So if you need to treat that prophylactically, you had one chicken that you've had to separate that wasn't doing well, and you want to treat the others to make sure that they don't get it. That's a great way to use it. Um, Another way is to like I said, if you had to, you could put it in their food. That's not the best practice because we like to have a clean mouth, but sometimes that's the only way you can get it down. For larger animals, what you can do is you can either you get it in a spray bottle and spray under their tail because they're going to get it that way. You can try giving it to them in their mouth. Sometimes horses or whatever it might be, goats or whatever, may not react to that as well. So you want to give it to them, like I said, and putting it in like a horse trough. I don't know that would be. It probably would be almost too dilute, and you have to be careful because if you're treating one animal, you don't necessarily want to be treating the other animals with that unless it's actually needed. It shouldn't hurt them, but I do try to, if you can, isolate the animal and just treat them that way. There's also a way that if you had to, you could help with wild animals, like if something was going around, like we've had skunks that had rabies. You could actually put water. People have done this where they put water out for the animals to kind of help them with that issue if they're a wild animal. I wanted to let you know there's all sorts of groups around the world that do treat with homeopathy. So if you have a specific type of animal, a horse or a goat or a sheep or whatever it might be, I would recommend getting homeopathy, a book or a resource just on that. And we're going to be going over resources, so I'm going to show you some of that. For example, I have one for my chickens because there's a lot that we can treat that's very similar. Like if a chicken has, we have a lot of kids that come over and they drop chickens. So if I get a chicken that's lame and limping, I can treat them with, I have a lame animal protocol that I can use in. And what's wonderful about homeopathy is if it's going to help a human, it's going to help an animal as well. But then there's also particular diseases that don't easily happen in humans. So it's a good idea to get a book or resource and be prepared. Again, with for example, I have a large dog that is supposedly higher risk for bloat, and I did not want to do the surgery that they recommended. So I make sure that I have. I looked up and I researched what could I give if a dog has bloat. And so the homeopathic remedy is lycopodium. So I make sure that I have lycopodium on hand just in case my large dog is to get that. So you would want to do some research for chickens. What kind of diseases can you easily get? Are you looking at, a flu kind of issue, or I'm trying to think, bird flu. What is the other one? There's another one that comes around quite a bit. You want to make sure that you're prepared and you have those on hand, right? So prevention saves us so much, right? Okay, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Okay, so we talked about treating animals with homeopathy. And again, I would join a group maybe. There's actually a plant and gardening homeopathy group that I'm a part of. There's lots of Facebook groups. There's amazing resources and books, and we'll go through that a little bit later. I did want to talk to you a little bit about pharmacies. So homeopathic pharmacies, there are several wonderful ones here in the United States. There's Hahnemann Pharmacy, there's Washington Homeopathy, there's one called, what is it? It's Taproots. It's out of Virginia that I really like. They have some good kits. Of course, you can order, even though I explained that Boron is a French company, they actually have a location in the United States. So if you order from them, normally they can get you remedies within a few days. I do caution, just to be careful sometimes with Amazon, make sure you know the source of where it's coming from. And there is also a large kit that I like that's a Banerjee, kit, and it's about $175. That is a great kit because it has a lot of the Banerjee protocol. So I try to show you that when we talk about that section. There are pharmacies. I know there's a particular one in Canada that a lot of people who are in Canada like. I like to order actually from Helios, that they're in London. It does take several weeks to get the remedies. I have a big order right now because their prices are amazing. So just to give you an example, this is a bottle of the calcarea carbonica that I talked about. This is, let's see, what size does it say? Oh, 50 grams. This is a 50-gram size, and this is probably going to be about 15 US dollars. So, of course, everything is in pounds, and they don't, you have to figure out the exchange rate based on your currency. But I love Helios because you can order their options for remedies. They have, I think they have like 15 pages of 3 columns on each page of the number of remedies that they offer. Where boron is great, but in the US, they are limited on what they can get. Also, you can get this, for example, if I wanted to get this in a liquid, I could order it. This is a liquid one that's in 10 milliliter. So you can order it in liquid. You can order all different potencies. And I find their prices are just amazing and so much better. So what I would normally pay for like 1 or 2 bottles of these, I can get a lot more material from this one. So I just wanted to let you know. So I always recommend try to see if you can get it from an American pharmacy or somewhere local. But if you can't, then Helios or some of these other pharmacies can offer a lot. Another one that's really great that's out of Australia is Homeopathy Plus. They have some amazing remedies. I get some of my remedies for pets that I can't get as easily with Helios. So you'll kind of learn like all these different options that you have. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you, like I said, for this section, I want you to write down various issues that you have concerns about that might pop up in your family. If you have animals, write down some of those. You know, they could get injured. So if they get injured, it's probably going to be similar remedies. But I want you to start a list and just start thinking, okay, I need to start looking for this. My daughter has to carry an EpiPen. You know, what if we were needing, if we used the EpiPen and we needed another dose, or we couldn't get an EpiPen at that time, what would you use? So just figuring out what it is that you need is going to help you narrow down what you need to order. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. Thank you.